The night on the alien queen's world was never truly dark, because the sky was filled with glowing moons and burning stars. Her palace stood high above the capital city, built from black stone and silver towers that touched the sky. Inside the palace, silence ruled. Soldiers in armor stood at every corner. No one dared to make a sound, for the queen was fierce and merciless. She had crushed armies, burned fleets, and ruled the galaxy with fear. Yet tonight, something happened that even her power could not stop. Her daughters vanished. The twin princesses were the most precious treasure in the queen's life. She guarded them more fiercely than any throne. They were the heirs to her empire, the blood that carried her legacy. She trusted only her strongest guards to watch over them. Their chamber was locked with seals, guarded by 10 soldiers, and surrounded by walls thicker than a warship's hull. No one could enter or escape. Or so the queen believed. But when dawn came, the chamber was empty. The guards swore they had not moved. The doors were untouched. The seals had not been broken. Yet the beds were cold, the blankets tossed aside, and the princesses were gone. A cry rose from the palace walls, a cry that made every servant and soldier shiver in terror. The queen roared. Her voice carried across the city like thunder. "Find them," she screamed. "Find my daughters, or I will burn this world to ash." The guards fell to their knees trembling, for they knew her rage. In her fury, she could kill thousands without hesitation. Armies had been destroyed for far less. Already she ordered her fleet to seal the skies. Starships spread across the heavens, blocking every path, every jump point, every escape. But still, the question haunted all. How could the princesses vanish without a trace? The queen stormed into the chamber herself. Her claws tore through the sheets, her eyes scanned every corner. Then she saw something, tiny footprints on the marble floor, prints too small for soldiers. They led to the balcony, then stopped at the edge. The queen leaned over, her sharp eyes cutting through the night air. Nothing. No ropes, no ships, no tracks below. It was impossible. Her advisors whispered theories. Some said traitors within the palace had taken the children. Others blamed empires, saying spies had stolen them to weaken her. A few dared to suggest humans, those strange, fragile beings who had been rising in the galaxy, unpredictable and cunning. The queen's eyes narrowed at the mention of them. The more she thought, the colder her rage became. She knew her enemies would use the princesses as weapons. If her daughters were harmed, she would unleash war like the galaxy had never seen. Her armies would march, her fleets would cover the stars, planets would burn, until only ashes remained. But, deep inside her heart, though she would never admit it, fear clawed at her. For the first time in many years, the queen was not in control. Somewhere beyond the palace, in the shadows of the galaxy, her daughters were alone. Or perhaps, not alone. And as the queen raised her hands, her command shook the palace walls. "Search every world, every system, every stone. Whoever has my daughters will beg for death before I am finished." The hunt had begun. Far away, unseen by the queen's eyes, a small hut in a poor human village lay quiet. Inside, a man stirred in his sleep, unaware of the storm that was coming. Unaware that 2 frightened alien girls had already curled up against his chest, as if he were the only shield left in the universe. The queen did not sleep that night. She sat on her throne of obsidian stone, her claws tapping against the armrest, her eyes burning like twin suns. Every commander in her empire had gathered before her. None dared to raise their heads. The air inside the throne hall was heavy, as if even the walls feared her rage. "Spread the order," she said coldly. "Lock down every star system, seal the trade routes. Not a single ship leaves without my command. Whoever hides my daughters will be dragged into the light." The word spread like fire. Across the galaxy, her fleet moved. Warships closed ports. Soldiers raided stations, and drones scanned every freighter, every shuttle. Whole worlds froze, in terror, for when the queen searched, no one was safe. Meanwhile, whispers crawled through the shadows of the empire. Some said the princesses had been stolen by assassins. Others claimed rival empires had struck first. And still others whispered, a darker tale that the children had chosen to run away. The queen crushed such talk with executions, but even she could not silence every whisper. Her most trusted general returned with the first clue. He fell to one knee before her throne and held out a fragment of cloth. My queen, this was found near the palace wall. It is torn, but it carries the scent of your daughters. The trail leads south, toward the human colonies. The hall fell silent. The queen's eyes narrowed. Humans, fragile in body, stubborn in spirit. They were younger than most races, yet they had already caused trouble in the outer systems. They were clever, always surviving where others failed. If they had touched her daughters, the galaxy would drown in blood. Send soldiers to every human village, she commanded. Search every home. If they resist, burn their cities to the ground. Across the empire, the hunt began. On one world, soldiers stormed through markets, seizing children and scanning them for royal blood. On another, patrol ships circled the skies, scanning for hidden signals. Everywhere, humans were questioned, beaten, or dragged away. Some begged for mercy. Others shouted their innocence. None were spared the queen's suspicion. But the strangest clue came from the palace itself. A scout reported seeing two small shapes moving across the starlit sky, as if carried by invisible wings. No ship was detected, no engines, no heat. Only shadows gliding away from the queen's fortress. Impossible, the queen hissed when she heard. But still, her heart trembled. Were her daughters taken by something more than soldiers? While the empire searched far away, the human man in the small hut awoke. He blinked in confusion, feeling warmth against his chest. When he looked down, he saw two small alien girls curled against him, their silver hair tangled, their breathing soft. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. But when one of them stirred and clutched his shirt tighter, he realized this was real. His first thought was fear. Who were they? Why were they in his home? But then he noticed their trembling bodies, the hunger in their eyes, and the way they pressed close to him seeking safety. They were not enemies. They were lost, scared children. He gave them food, whatever little he had. The girls ate quickly, whispering words in a language he didn't fully understand. Yet one word was clear: mother. The man felt a cold weight in his chest. Whoever these children were, someone powerful must be searching for them. And if that someone found them here, in his arms, his life would be over. Outside his village, in the skies above, the queen's warships were already moving closer. The hunt had reached his world. The man's name was Daniel. He lived alone at the edge of the village, far from the crowded houses and noisy markets. Most people did not visit his hut. He was a quiet man, working small jobs, fixing tools, and sometimes trading food for coins. To the villagers, he was nothing special, just another human trying to survive. But now, inside his simple wooden hut, a secret greater than any treasure was hidden. Two alien girls lay curled on his bed, their silver hair shining faintly in the dim firelight. Their eyes, large and luminous, opened from time to time, scanning the shadows with fear. Daniel had never seen beings like them before. Their skin was pale with a strange glow, and their voices carried an echo, as if the air itself listened when they spoke. He gave them water. They drank quickly, like they had not tasted anything in days. Then he placed bread in their small hands. The girls ate in silence, but their gazes never left his face. One of them, braver than the other, whispered something in her own tongue. Daniel could not understand the words, but he understood the feeling. It was trust. When night fell, they refused to sleep on the floor. Instead, they crawled back to his side, pressing close as if he were their protector. Daniel sighed, unsure of what to do. He was only one man. He had no weapons, no power, nothing to protect even himself. Yet when he looked at their trembling, bodies, something deep inside him awakened. A duty. A strange bond he could not explain. The next morning, rumors reached the village. Soldiers had landed. The Queen's army was searching every town, every hut. They wanted something, or someone. People whispered of missing princesses, of the Queen's rage, of blood and fire that followed her wrath. Daniel listened quietly, but his hands shook. Missing princesses. Could it be these girls? He returned home quickly. The girls were waiting, their faces pale, their small hands clutching each other. One of them pointed to the window, fear in her eyes. Daniel stepped outside and saw dust rising in the distance, soldiers approaching the village. His heart pounded. He shut the door and knelt before them. "You must be quiet," he said, his voice low and firm. "Do not make a sound. No matter what happens, stay hidden." Though they did not understand his words fully, they seemed to understand his tone. The braver girl nodded and pulled her sister close. Daniel lifted the floorboards of his hut, revealing a small hollow space where he usually stored food for winter. It was cramped and dark, but it was the only hiding place he had. He helped them climb inside, covering them with cloth and wood. Their glowing eyes looked at him from the shadows. They did not want him to leave, but he pressed a finger to his lips. Shh. Moments later, heavy fists pounded on his door. The soldiers entered without asking. Their armor glistened, their weapons sharp. They pushed Daniel aside and searched every corner, tossing his belongings, scattering tools, and breaking jars. One of them pressed a blade against his chest. "Where are they?" the alien soldier demanded. Daniel's face remained blank. "I don't know what you mean," he said, forcing calm into his voice. They searched for hours, overturning everything, but found nothing. At last, their leader snarled, "If we learn you are hiding them, human, you will beg for death." Then they left, leaving his hut in ruins. When the silence returned, Daniel quickly uncovered the hiding place. The girls crawled out, their faces pale but their eyes shining with relief. They ran into his arms, clinging tightly. He felt their small hearts beating fast against his chest, and in that moment Daniel understood the truth. He was no longer just hiding strangers. He was protecting something far greater, the daughters of the Queen herself. The galaxy would kill him for this secret. But letting them go felt impossible. The village had never seen such fear. From morning till night, alien soldiers marched. Through the dusty streets, their heavy boots shaking the ground. Their eyes glowed beneath dark helmets, and their strange weapons hummed with quiet menace. Everyone knew what they were searching for: the Queen's missing daughters. But no one dared to say a word. Daniel kept his head low whenever he walked outside. He carried buckets of water or stacks of wood, pretending to be just another poor human trying to survive. But inside his hut, his secret grew heavier each day. The two alien girls stayed hidden, whispering softly to each other, clinging to Daniel whenever they sensed the soldiers nearby. At night, Daniel tried to sleep, but his ears never rested. Every sound, the crack of wood, the shuffle of boots, the cry of a neighbor, made his heart leap. He knew it was only a matter of time before the soldiers returned to his hut. They had searched before, but soldiers never trusted humans. They would come again, and next time they would tear his home apart piece by piece. The next morning, his fear became real. A horn blasted through the village, long and sharp. Daniel stepped outside and saw soldiers moving house to house again, but this time with more force. They smashed doors, overturned carts, and dragged families into the streets. A mother screamed as her child was pulled away to be scanned for royal blood. The soldiers ignored her cries. Then Daniel saw them. 3 armored figures walking straight toward his hut. Their leader carried a staff tipped with a glowing crystal, a device meant to detect life hidden behind walls. Daniel's throat went dry. He rushed inside, closing the door quickly. The girls looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. He dropped to his knees beside them. "Listen," he whispered urgently. "They are coming. You must stay hidden no matter what. Do not move. Do not make a sound." The younger girl's eyes filled with tears. She grabbed Daniel's sleeve, shaking her head. She didn't want him to leave her. The older one, though trembling, pulled her sister close, trying to be brave. Daniel forced a shaky smile. "I'll protect you." The pounding came, loud, furious fists against his door. Wood cracked under the force. Daniel rose slowly, his heart hammering. He opened the door just as the soldiers prepared to break it down. The leader stepped inside first, his staff glowing faintly. "Human," he growled. "We search again." Daniel nodded, keeping his face blank. "Search. I have nothing." The soldiers spread out, overturning his few belongings. One kicked over the table. Another slashed open sacks of grain, spilling food onto the dirt floor. The leader walked slowly, waving the glowing staff. The crystal pulsed whenever it passed near walls or the floor. Daniel's breath caught. The girls were hidden beneath the wooden boards. Would the staff detect them? The leader stopped in the center of the hut, his staff glowing brighter. He lowered it toward the ground. Daniel's muscles tensed, every nerve screaming. At that moment he stumbled forward, pretending to fall clumsily. His shoulder knocked against the staff, sending it clattering to the ground. The crystal flickered, then dimmed. The soldier snarled and shoved Daniel hard against the wall. "Clumsy human," he barked. Daniel kept his eyes low, murmuring an apology. He could feel the sweat sliding down his neck, but he did not look at the floor. If he did, they would notice. Minutes passed like hours. At last, the leader growled, "Nothing here. Move on." The soldiers left, slamming the door behind them. Daniel stood frozen until the sound of boots faded. Then he rushed to lift the floorboards. The two girls were curled together in the darkness, shaking but silent. When they saw his face, they crawled into his arms at once, clinging tightly. Daniel held them close, his chest rising and falling with relief. He had fooled the soldiers this time, but he knew the truth. Next time, he might not be so lucky. The soldiers would return again and again. And if they ever found the princesses here, Daniel would not only lose his life, his entire village might burn with him. The danger was growing. The secret was no longer safe. Days passed, and Daniel's life no longer felt like his own. His small hut had turned into a cage of secrets. Outside, alien soldiers patrolled the village, their metallic boots echoing on stone streets. Inside, the two alien girls clung to him as though he were the only safe place left in the universe. At first, Daniel thought of them only as fugitives, strangers he needed to hide until it was safe. But the longer they stayed, the more he noticed how they changed the air around him. Their presence filled the silent hut with whispers, soft laughter, and even small arguments in their strange tongue. For a man who had lived alone for years, it felt almost like having a family. One evening, as he prepared a thin stew from roots and dried meat, the older girl reached for the spoon. She pointed to herself, her bright eyes asking silently if she could help. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. She stirred clumsily, spilling drops onto the fire, but she smiled with pride. The younger one giggled, a sound that melted some of the fear in his chest. Later, when they ate together, Daniel noticed something unusual. The girls did not treat him like a stranger. They leaned against him, tugged at his sleeve, and even rested their heads on his shoulder. They did not call him by name. They didn't know it. But they whispered a word in their language whenever they touched him. He could not understand it fully, but he felt its meaning. Protector. Daniel lay awake that night, staring at the wooden roof. He should have been afraid. He was hiding the most valuable beings in the galaxy, daughters of the most feared queen. If the soldiers discovered them, he would die in ways too cruel to imagine. And yet, letting them go felt impossible. They trusted him. They needed him. And though he didn't want to admit it, he needed them too. The bond grew stronger. The girls began to mimic his actions. When he chopped wood, they picked up sticks and tried to copy him, laughing when their small arms failed. When he washed clothes in the stream, they splashed water and chased each other, their silver hair glittering in the sun. For a moment, Daniel almost forgot the danger outside, but reality always returned. One night, heavy boots thundered through the village again. Soldiers shouted, dragging neighbors from their homes. Daniel quickly hid the girls beneath the floorboards. He sat alone by the fire, his jaw tight, waiting for the knock that might end his life. The soldiers did not come that night, but the message was clear. The Queen's fury was growing. When the girls crawled out after the danger passed, Daniel saw tears in their eyes. The younger one clung to him, trembling. The older one looked up at him with a gaze far too heavy for a child, as if she understood the risk he carried for them. Slowly, she reached out and touched his chest, right above his heart. She whispered that same word again, protector. Daniel swallowed hard. He had not chosen this fate, but now it was his. In the quiet that followed, he made a promise to himself. If the soldiers returned, if the Queen herself came, he would not hand these girls over. Whatever they were, whoever they belonged to, they were his to guard now. The bond between them was no longer an accident. It was dangerous, it was reckless, but it was real. And somewhere far above, aboard her warship, the Queen felt a pull in her blood. A mother's instinct whispering that her daughters were still alive. Her rage deepened, her search widened, and her armies prepared to crush anything in their path. The storm was coming closer. The alien Queen sat alone in her war chamber, her throne rising above a map of the galaxy projected in light. Her claws tapped against the armrest as reports poured in from every world. Soldiers had searched 100 villages, scanned thousands of ships, and interrogated entire cities. But still, no sign of her daughters. Her eyes burned like fire. She had fought countless wars, but nothing had ever wounded her like this. The Empire could shake, planets could fall, but her daughters were the only treasure she could not replace. To lose them was not just an insult, it was a tear in her very soul. Her generals knelt before her, their heads bowed low. One dared to speak. My Queen, perhaps the princesses were taken beyond our borders. The humans! The Queen's roar shook the hall. Humans! She spat, her voice like thunder. Fragile bodies, weak bones, yet they hide in the cracks of the galaxy like insects. Do you think I would not crush them if they dared touch my blood? The general lowered his head quickly, but the Queen's anger did not soften. She rose from her throne, her tall figure casting a long shadow across the chamber. Seal the human colonies, she commanded. Every village, every farm, every hut. Tear them apart if you must. If my daughters are among them, I will know. If humans hide them, I will make their world burn. Her words echoed into the dark, carried by comms across her empire. Fleets mobilized, warships blotted out suns. The hunt for the princesses had turned into a war against humanity itself. But even as she raged, a small part of her heart trembled. The Queen had ruled for centuries, feared across star systems. Yet in the silence of her private chambers, she was not a ruler. She was a mother. And mothers felt fear. She replayed the last memory she had of her daughters, their laughter as they chased each other across the palace gardens, their small hands clutching her cloak when they were tired. The way they looked at her with pure trust. Now that trust was broken, scattered into the void, she clenched her fists. Whoever had taken them had stolen not only her heirs, but also the last piece of softness in her heart. She could not show weakness before her empire. Her fury was the only shield left. Far away in the small human hut, Daniel felt the storm building, though he could not see it. He noticed more soldiers in the village, more patrol ships circling the skies. Even traders whispered that war was near. The humans had begun to fear the Queen's wrath, for they knew if her daughters were not found, her anger would fall upon them all. The two alien girls stayed close to Daniel. They sensed the danger too. At night, when soldiers shouted in the distance, they curled against his chest, their small hands gripping his shirt tightly. Daniel whispered to them, though they understood only pieces of his words, "Don't be afraid, I'll keep you safe." But deep inside, Daniel wondered, how long could he keep that promise? Back aboard her warship, The queen looked into the stars and whispered a vow only the void could hear. My daughter, whoever holds you will feel my claws. I will not rest. I will not stop. I will tear the galaxy apart until you are returned to me. Her rage was no longer just anger. It was destiny. Daniel had always known the girls were different, but he never truly understood how different. Until that night. The sky above the village was restless, full of thunder and flashing lights from warships that circled like hawks. Soldiers searched endlessly, yet somehow they had not discovered the truth inside Daniel's hut. The two girls stayed hidden, but their fear grew sharper each day. Daniel felt it every time they clung to him, trembling when a horn blasted or boots thundered outside. That evening, as the fire burned low, the older girl sat close to Daniel. She had grown braver since the first day. Her silver eyes met his as if she had something important to say. She pressed her hand to her chest, then pointed at him, then to her sister. Slowly, she began to speak, not in whispers, but in words that carried weight. Daniel frowned, trying to understand. At first, it was only sounds to him. But then, in her soft voice, he caught a word repeated again and again. Queen. His breath froze. Queen. The younger girl shifted uneasily, pulling out a pendant hidden beneath her clothes. It was small, round, and carved with markings Daniel had never seen. When it caught the firelight, the symbol glowed faintly. Daniel reached for it carefully. The pendant was heavy for its size, cold yet pulsing with energy. He had seen something like this before, on posters, on banners carried by alien soldiers. It was the royal crest. His hands trembled as he looked at the two girls. They were not just lost children, they were the missing princesses. The weight of the truth crashed down on him. No wonder the Queen's rage had shaken the galaxy. No wonder soldiers tore through villages without mercy. These two girls, the ones curled against him each night, the ones who trusted him as their protector, were the blood heirs to the most feared throne in the stars. Daniel's mind raced. If anyone in the village found out, they would turn him over at once to save themselves. If the soldiers discovered the pendant, they would not only kill him but burn the village to ash. But when he looked at the girls, he saw none of that power, none of that terror. He saw only two frightened children who wanted safety, who had chosen him. Their small faces turned to him with trust so deep it pierced his heart. The older one touched his hand gently, guiding it back to the pendant. She pressed it to his chest, as if she was choosing him. Her glowing eyes met his, and though he could not understand her words, the meaning was clear. She was telling him the truth. She was telling him that they belonged to him now, not as his blood, not as his people, but as his responsibility. Daniel swallowed hard. He should have been afraid. He should have pushed them away, told them to run, told them to find their own kind. But instead he closed his fist around the pendant and whispered, "I'll protect you, whatever it costs." At that moment, the door of his hut shook under a heavy knock. Soldiers again. This time, their voices outside were sharper, angrier. Daniel quickly hid the pendant under his shirt. His heart thundered, but his eyes hardened. The girls pressed close, hiding behind him. And for the first time, Daniel no longer felt like just a poor man trying to survive. He felt like a shield standing between the galaxy's most powerful throne and its most fragile heirs. The truth had been revealed, and there was no turning back.